Jeff Bezos stated the surge of investment in AI is a kind of industrial bubble. What's your view? We have a totally non-consensus view on this. We think that when it comes to technology bubbles, they're fantastic. You need to have a bubble to attract the capital. Well, first of all, we don't really think we're in a bubble, but bubbles are good because you attract capital into the sector, like you're seeing it in the private market. Sometimes at unsustainable valuations, but you get the capital in, you get the first to market. And so you end up with like the Mag 8, even though there was a lot of money wasted in 2001 on like Webvan and some other ridiculous investments. But you end up with all the leaders, the rest of the world is completely left out of the market. And so time to market's more important than efficiency to market. But we don't, there's some companies that are bubbles, like arguably Palantir, Tesla. But overall, that the companies we hold like Broadcom, Amazon, and we have a little bit of tech in ICAP, they're trading at reasonable PEG ratios, so the PE to the growth rate. So we don't see a bubble, but there will be a bubble, but that's an opportunity. So you might own Marvell at 90 and it's totally reasonable or undervalued on a PEG ratio. Well, maybe in 2 years it's going to be ridiculously valued. Well, that's good because you should probably sell a part of your holdings, but it really creates an opportunity. Do you have any bubble thoughts, Will?
I'm a little bit more bearish than you on that. I think something's got to give, but from our perspective, we're not really involved in the tech world because they're greedy, right? They're taking all the money and they're plowing it back into their CapEx. They're not giving very much of it out to shareholders. When they do, they tend to, do things like buy back stock and stuff, and that's not giving us the income we're looking for. From my perspective, I'm sitting there watching all of these data centers that are being built up. They're plowing all this CapEx into them. And I'm seeing infrastructure that ultimately infrastructure is going to be paying something around 5 to 8% returns on an unleveraged basis, right? That's just how infrastructure is. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's telephone lines, the cell phone towers, and eventually this infrastructure is going to be a great opportunity for income investors to come in, provide the capital to buy them, and basically rent out I guess you'd call them AI units. And that's kind of I was talking about it this morning in our chat. Somebody was quoting somebody who was making a very similar point to what you were making. So I could be completely wrong on this, basically saying we're in 1996, not in 1999, right? That growth is still coming, and quite possibly, but eventually you're going to get to the point where the CapEx that they're spending, they have enough. AI is generating enough now that it's no longer a scarce commodity. You can no longer charge a lot for it. And then you start having that price run down to the bottom. We can't charge you $100 a month now for your 20,000 credits. It's going to cut down to $50 a month, and you're going to get in that kind of bidding war. And then you're just dealing with an infrastructure investment. Provide the capital, buy it from them, and sell the units and have that recurring income stream. And I think a lot of the companies that are applying this capital in, they're not necessarily going to be the big winners of the AI in the end because they're spending the money. But when it gets to the point where it's plentiful, other companies that are just starting out are going to come out, right? A lot of companies that become successful that are the big internet winners, they came out after the dot-com bust. There's a handful that were there before, like Amazon, kind of the exception that managed to get in there early and managed to survive through it. And I think that's kind of the route that it's going to go. I think the timeline predicting how long is a lot more complicated. And we could be sitting with some decent growth here for a few years, or investors could have their faith shaken. And I think that's really what it is. It's when investors get their faith shaken and they decide to start selling out, it doesn't matter how good it is fundamentally at that point. The investors will just go until they become confident that AI can be monetized, that it can be producing the massive growth. The companies like Amazon that are still primarily generating money from other sources will obviously be perfectly fine. And if you can get them at a good valuation, I've held Amazon forever. So, yeah, okay. They'll survive. They'll find ways to survive.